And I tell you why, because these people you cannot push. So it's about the network. It's about you need to have a long breath. You get to meet them. You meet their family offices. You meet their their attorneys and so on. And this can take years and years and years.
Welcome to the Circuit Magazine, the #1 source of information on protection matters, the industry-leading magazine for all security professionals who want to stay ahead of the game.
Achieving success on your next German operation. Today, Jon Moss and myself are delighted to be speaking with Dr. Christoph Eichel, CEO and founder of Solitaire Advisory. We're going to be exploring what it means to partner with German local partners, what it means to operate in Germany, and explore wider concepts such as the emergence of security as a serious discipline locally. What are we going to expect to talk about today, Jon?
Well, these types of discussion, I really enjoy them because, as a global protector, as most of us are, it helps build up our playbook of data and information, geopolitics, and of course, we're building connections. So we're building our little black book as well. And to, discover the inner workings of another country is always useful to get some tips and hints from a local insider.
It is, isn't it? And particularly Germany. I mean, one might ask oneself, how come I have not bumped into more Germans on operations globally, given that it's a really large economy, a really developed economy? Or am I imagining things? Do you bump into many German operators, Jon?
No, that's very true. You don't see too many of them around, and it'll be interesting to get Christoph's take on that and to, see what factors might be at play.
Absolutely, because much as maybe we explored with the Swiss market, there might be a similar dynamic of, nobody is interested in me, or if I just keep a low profile, everything will be fine. But I think that's changing. Obviously, geopolitically, we know energy is a big issue. We know Ukraine is a big issue. We know that lots of internal factors are changing German society, or at least we believe so from the popular press that we might read. So I think this is going to be a really good tour de force, and hopefully get people not just interested in working with Germans, but maybe working in the German market itself. Maybe that's too ambitious, but that's what we're going to have a go finding out from Dr. Eichel. Let's get into it. Let's find out about operating in Germany, finding German partnerships, and exploring Christoph Eichel's very interesting career.
And now, let's meet one of the contributors to the Circuit Magazine.
Operating in Germany and with German local partners as an EP professional. Today, Jon Moss and myself, we are delighted to welcome Dr. Christoph Eichel, CEO and founder of Solitaire Advisory. It's a pleasure to have you on. How are you doing?
Thank you, Philip. Thanks for being here. Doing very well.
Well, great to have you on. I know you've spoken at a lot of events, and it's great to finally bring a German flavor to the podcast. Let's do our 3 quickfire questions that people on this podcast are familiar with. Number 1, what is the challenge or the problem with operating in Germany today that people should be aware about?
For me, it is definitely that security in the corporate world in Germany, besides the major enterprise, let's say, doesn't play almost any role. Yeah. So companies are almost, let's say, SMEs reluctant to security. And I've been preaching now for years, to think of risk management and think of security when you enter several markets, etc. Also to protect your assets, your personnel. But it is very difficult because we're, having been in a peaceful environment for now 70 years, people are really difficult to reach when it comes to security. But it's changing now. It's changing slowly, but it's changing.
Fantastic. Well, it's good. You're at the spear tip of that, changing mindsets. But then on that, what about you? Where does your passion for this come from? What about your background?
Well, I'm a former army officer. Yeah, traditionally here in Germany we do 12 years, and then we can decide if we want to stay for the rest of our lives, basically in the military service, or we are leaving usually as a captain. And I decided to leave, to join the private sector. And as I left, I was trying also to find my niche, on my way in the private sector, as I was not sure which one this could be. And at the end of the day, I always came back to security related topics, and I thought, maybe this is my way. Leaving let's say the security forces, to some extent, and to join the very small niche, at least here in the German-speaking countries, of the corporate security world, which I then eventually did.
Fantastic, and that's quite a niche, but hopefully an expanding one that we're going to get to know, especially abroad as well. But then on that, let's imagine you're an operator who's never operated in Germany before, an uninitiated operator in all things German. What should they expect or better understand before either coming to Germany or partnering with a local German partner?
Mm-hmm. Well, the first and most important point I already mentioned. It is that the people are really aware of security here. It's changing. The enterprises, again, it's different. They have their corporate security departments, and they work also with international security providers. But the German market itself, there are not so many high quality players here in the market, really, because the demand is not to compare with Great Britain or even with the US, let's say, because the market is just not there. It's growing again, but it's not as big. And at the end of the day, I would think for service providers, there's only a handful, maybe two handful of high quality service providers you can really select. There's a lot of one-man shows, and there are, of course, some of the bigger international players. But they also, of course, found out that it's not the easiest market to operate, because the Germans are, I don't want to call them different, but you need to get a sense of how they think, and what they think is necessary, and it might be different to what especially North American companies or British companies experience so far. So the market, really, to understand it, you either need to have lived here for some time, or you really need a partner here, because also when it comes to personal protection, there are some licenses you have to get. And I'm not quite sure if every foreign nationality can get a gun license here, really. So there are some limitations, definitely. And therefore, I think with a local partner, you're better off, really.
So, Christoph, I'm really interested. I want to dive straight in and understand on behalf of myself and the listeners, what are the factors that are restricting the market in Germany? Because when you look at it from an outsider, you think it's got all of the elements that you would need in a major first world country to require a lot of protection, especially for, when you consider how good the economy is in Germany, comparatively to the rest of Europe, the amount of high net worth individuals that you've got, big business, some of the big events that are run in Germany. Well, why is the market, the security sector, so small?
I think people here in general feel very safe. And it's the same in Austria and even more in Switzerland, really, because this is usually our core market, the German-speaking countries. And Germany, the people feel safe. It is changing now over time, but I don't know. I think it has to do also with maybe our foreign and security politics. Yeah, we are not so, let's say, ambitious as other countries, other NATO countries might be internationally, and that reflects a lot on us. Yeah, we don't really see major problems overseas, focusing on German businesses and saying, okay, listen, the Germans are coming, they're bad, something like that. Yeah. So, I mean, wherever German companies operate, besides some, let's say, general obstacles everybody would face if you enter a market in Latin America or elsewhere, I think the Germans feel relatively safe here and abroad. Yeah. And at the end of the day, we have to be honest, not that many things happen. I mean, there are some kidnappings and stuff like this, maybe some extortions, but it's not as bad as it might be for other countries that are more connected maybe to their own government's foreign and security politics.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's really interesting. I suspected you were going to go somewhere along those lines. Having spent a certain amount of time as an international operating in Germany, it really does surprise me to see just how low of a presence security is there, and therefore how much I stand out and have to work against that, and and try to operate in a more low profile just to blend in, because the last thing we want to do is increase the threat where none or very little might have existed in the first place, simply by having a presence. And so it was just very recently we did see another attack against civilians, shall we say, innocent people with a vehicle being used as a weapon. And this is something, I wouldn't exactly say it's a trend in Germany. I think it's would be too much to say that, but obviously we've seen quite a few incidents now, and certainly Berlin has seen more than its fair share. Whilst this isn't necessarily enough to make high net worths go rushing out to secure executive protection, it certainly is a change in the landscape, I think, from the traditional view of Germany as being a really relatively safe place. So in addition to the terrorist threat, what other factors do you see, looking ahead towards the future, that could positively influence the growth of the security industry in Germany?
Well, it's clearly the cybersecurity threat we are facing. Yeah, I mean, Germany represents a very, I would think, rich country towards other countries. Yeah, and so people or organized crime groups, however we want to, or cells, however we want to call them, they see a lot of very good opportunities here. Yeah, and I mean, this is what already happened since years. The numbers are increasing in that field dramatically, and with the war in Ukraine even more. Yeah, and I mean, the situation is tense, and this keeps going as the digitalization here in this country is still not as advanced as it could be, and therefore the more digitalization, the more entry points you can find as an attacker. One thing, cybersecurity. Second, and I've just been in Berlin because I'm in different working groups with the government with security-related topics. The second thing is the lack of resources. Yeah. That we are seeing at the moment, because really we don't have a resources strategy. So it could happen that in the mid-run, we are running out of different resources, because we don't have a strategy. We are not connected to, let's say, markets in Latin America. We are not connected to Africa. We are not tapping the mines in Congo and elsewhere. So this is something where we have to actually put a stronger focus on, and that means we have to go where usually German or most of the German companies wouldn't go, in high-risk areas. Yeah, they usually would wait because we are never first movers. We are usually second movers. They let go in the big companies. I don't know. Let's say for like international players first to see how this is going, and then they would follow. In most cases, it's really like this. So I think we have to become even more international to actually fulfill our demand for resources. Yeah, and this is something where we actually have to rethink security also internationally. And last but not least, I mean, Germany is and people wouldn't, or most people wouldn't agree to that, but is a migration country. Yeah, it's getting more international now. It's open to the world. At the end of the day, there's more people coming in, coming out, more or less well surveilled or detected. Yeah, and I think this is also bringing some issues from outside into Germany. Yeah, it's not, we're not completely separated from the rest of the world. The world gets more international, yeah, really, and therefore the exchange of people, yeah, is getting more and more. And Germany is a very attractive destination for many people. And of course, the more people come, there's always a certain percentage that says maybe something in mind, or it's attractive for organized crime and so on. So I think this will, due to this internationality, it will also get a little more bumpy along the way.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, I totally appreciate your third point. And while certainly, you can't say migration alone is a standalone factor in increasing crime and threats, but all it takes is a very small percentage. And it's something that you can look across the world, across the rest of Europe, the States, especially in the UK, especially in London. And you can see there's a definite link between migration in small pockets of areas and, an increased threat that certainly high net worths and businesses would want to protect against. So that said,
please, Jon, please don't get me wrong. I mean, most of all the immigrants that are coming here doing a great job. I'm married to a foreigner myself, yeah. So, but I mean, it's a reality we are facing, and look at the big cities. Yeah, I mean, this is getting out of hand in some areas. Berlin is a good example. I think politics would never agree on that. Yeah, but the people, I mean, they see it every day.
And it also attracts high net worths from around the world. I mean, okay, in the UK, we've repelled some high net worths recently, but but it swings and roundabouts. So I'd be interested. Let's say I'm a German security-minded professional. How do I get into EP? Because I think that'd be nice to compare and contrast, and then we'd find out about the licensing, the training regimen. Is it something that someone who's never been in the police, never been in the armed forces, can just pick up and run with?
Well, it's changing. Since a couple of years, it's actually changing. We had those times, where all the corporate securities, they were solely either ex-police or ex-military, some intelligence, but it's changing. And I was very skeptical in the beginning myself, because I thought, wow, we're coming from the, military, having served in Afghanistan, I know everything, and nobody possibly could know more in the physical security than me or we from the security authorities, let's say. But they brought in some very good and I would think thoroughly executed security management university bachelors and masters. And really those young men and women that are joining the ranks in the corporate securities mostly, I have to admit, from a methodological standpoint, they're doing a great job. Because what we are seeing here, and this goes for the rest of the world too, security is professionalizing over time. Yeah, before it was a lot of experience we brought from police, from military. Yeah, but now we have more standards, we have more norms. Yeah, we have more procedures we can follow on. It was not like, okay, in the past we did it like this, and now we have to do it like this. But now we actually have the ISOs and we have all those standards, and this keeps going to develop. Yeah, and so these young people, mostly young now, because those university studies, I think they are offered since, I don't know, let's say 10 years or so. Yeah, they are bringing like a thorough understanding of methodology and those norms, and they grow into this field. And I'm meanwhile, as I said before, I was a little skeptical, but now open to this because it makes the security departments more interdisciplinary. Yeah. So you have different factors and they all can play out their strengths. Yeah. And I think it makes it in total more professional, really.
I like that because obviously, it opens the door to new disciplines, maybe technical disciplines joining, I don't know, especially on pen tests and things. A similar debate is going on in cyber, by the way, just in case we're feeling left out, because on the cyber side, there are colleagues who are saying, oh, what about the non-technical colleagues? It's almost like the parallel between military and police is who spent long years in their basement. I know that's a tangent, but I think it's a nice parallel.
But Phelim, yeah, we already talked about it at our last conference. Really, physical and digital world are more and more interconnected. You cannot divide this. These are not two parallel worlds, so you have to think both at all times. Therefore, interdisciplinary must become the standard. Yeah, there is no way around because nobody can possibly know everything. So you will always have specialists, and just cybersecurity is such a huge field. I mean, even there you need different experiences and educations and focuses. So this is the only way to go, basically.
Can I play devil's advocate just for one moment? Because we obviously are big fans of promoting EP, and we would not do anything to diminish that importance. But is there something magical or something to be said by the German approach that you outlined, which is not to need security, to lower your profile? Because I know some colleagues in Hamburg, they say you have no idea who is rich and who is poor. They dress the same and they try and keep a low profile. Is there not something of merit to that approach too?
You might have to leave the security bubble to actually identify and get a better understanding of your target group, because where could you find them? Yeah, I mean, they're operating solely in the business environment. Usually, yeah, they're trying, and this is different really to other countries. Most of them trying to be low profile. Yeah, you cannot really identify, just as you said. So you actually have to maybe dig deeper into finance industries or into private equity, into even, we have those catalogs of these are the SMEs and these are the family businesses, third, fourth, fifth generation, where they have really developed a certain wealth. Yeah. And I mean, you really have to basically research the market to identify those people, because we have those lists. I mean, you have them too, the 500 richest people in Germany and whatnot. Yeah. Yeah, this is nice to know, but there are so many more families, that are not on that list. I don't know why not. Maybe they have a way to buy themselves out, or I don't know. But to identify them is not as easy. So you really have to understand Germany. And Germany is maybe not the land of the major enterprises only. I think it's the SMEs who generate 80 or 85% of the GDP over here. So this is really the backbone. And there is also the wealth. Yeah, of course, we have the major enterprises, but they have C-level. Yeah, this is employed, so to speak. Yeah, but the business owners, fourth, fifth generation, are very interesting for the EP field. Yeah, and but for them, it's even more difficult to do the necessary step to actually get into or to get a protective detail. Usually, it changes a little bit. This is my experience. Usually, only when they have a family, when they have kids, and then they start to get a little weak and more sensitive, maybe for the weak, in brackets, but when they get a little more sensitive for security, and then this is usually how this could start, or when something, of course, has happened. Yeah, but I think this is the major group where there are certain families that would have the necessary means to finance these kind of security measures. Yeah.
And also, Pelham, I just want to jump in here. And from an outsider's perspective, on your point, I just want to say, from my observations, I've been sat in, let's say, an S-Class or a coffee shop, or, looking out of a window of an office many times with one of my German colleagues, quite often a driver. And he takes great pleasure in saying to me, pointing out somebody who's walking along the street, go, see that guy? This guy is head of huge corporation. This guy head of XYZ corporation. You would never know. Mm. And I hear this so often, and I go, wow, yeah, you would never know. But then I think to myself, but and and so whilst yes, they do. I think the point is that they walk around with a sense and a feeling of security, and that they blend in and they look just like everybody else with their grocery bag, marching off home. But the fact is, these people are still very and easily identifiable, and there are plenty of people who do know who they are. So, I think it says more about the culture and the environment, in a long-standing sense, as to why these people are able to move with such ease and feel so comfortable in doing so.
I mean, the people we are talking about, they're usually also well connected amongst themselves. So once you enter this, I don't want to call it bubble, but this group of people, you might also get to know people that are in the surrounding, like they're friends because they know each other from whatever sport they're doing together, So I think once you're tapping into that, then you actually get a certain awareness of, okay, this is this person and this is that person. But as an outsider, it takes you quite some time to actually do the intelligence, to collect all the information. And I know some of the families really, you would never think, they never appear anywhere. Maybe they even got out of the let's say operational business, or they handed it over to someone else. There's a holding on top, and there's another holding, so you don't really see who's behind. And you would never think they are like someone who would actually think about personal protection. Mm-hmm. So, and then of course you have the big names, that are in every business magazine, basically, and they usually would have personal protection, even here. Yeah.
Yeah. It's true. It does. It really surprises me, and what not from a security point of view and my own personal interest in that, i.e. making a living from it. I do think it's awesome that in Germany, people can live this way. But obviously, for our industry to prosper, we would like a certain, duty or sense of feeling for this duty of protection for oneself, their assets and their family, to be certainly at a higher level. And, to that point, as a business owner in the security industry, obviously with ambitions of growing and reaching your aims and goals, how do you go about doing that? How do you start to how do you make people aware, firstly, of your business? How do you explain the need of the services you provide and why it might? How do you get these people to come around to realizing that security could be a good function, could be a good service for them?
Well, I'm in this industry now for, let's say, roughly 10 years, after I've left the armed forces. And now that I have my own company, we offer this service, but we are not pushing it. And I tell you why, because these people you cannot push. Yeah, so it's about the network. It's about you need to have a long breath. Really, you get to meet them. You meet their family offices. You meet their attorneys and so on. And this can take years and years and years until they actually raise the awareness, because it's very difficult to actually meet them in person. So you go through intermediaries, let's say, and therefore we are not pushing for it. People know that we are offering this, and we have the right network also to set up a good team, but we are not pushing for it, and we let the people or we give them time, time to develop this feeling. We start maybe with other little things and awareness training here for the kids or for the employees in their homes, or for the drivers, let's say, or we do a little bit, I don't know, like travel security, where we can help a little bit here and there, so that they actually see, okay, this is a service in the long run. This is actually helping me, because not all it's a question of money, of course, and it costs money. It costs a lot of money, and therefore they not only need to see that security is, of course, protecting them, but also gives them a little bit of a service feeling they have in addition, which they wouldn't have if they wouldn't have the protective detail, let's say. So, and therefore, for us at Solitaire, this is not really the focus. But we are aware that when we talk to business owners, family businesses, let's say, and I talked about the third, fourth, fifth generation, that when we work with the companies, at some point there might be the owner coming and say, listen, I also have a security issue with family, or I'm thinking about this, and then of course we can add this in addition. But I wouldn't think this is our real focus, because this comes more or less automatically. And I think you cannot really push in this market. So, and therefore I decided to extend my network, talk to the right people, of course, and I know quite some families now, after the 10 years, but they know I'm here. And if there's something, then at the end of the day, I hope they're calling me, if there's something urgent coming.
Well, what I'm hearing there is a big advocacy for networking and connections, which is, I think, whenever we talk about developing, whether that's personal or as a business and growing, it always comes down to networking and connections. And it's something that we beat the drum for quite loudly here. So that's great to hear.
And this is the interesting thing is this is for every leader in the security world, no matter if you're a security provider or if you're in corporate security, CSO, let's say. It is more important that you establish a network either amongst the clients, or within your, let's say, organization, because you also have to sell security internally in your organization, in the enterprise. Because you have your people who do the security, so to speak. But as a security leader in your field, you have to spread the network. You have to talk to the people. You have to sales. You have to talk to research and development. You have to talk to the C-level. So to raise awareness that we are here, we are helping, we are enabling business. That's what we're here for. We are not here to prevent, to hold you back from doing this, and this. No, you need to enable. And therefore, you have to talk to the business, because the business makes the money. Security is only an enabler. And I think not everybody has really understood this so far. Also in enterprises, I see this sometimes. It's difficult because the management will not listen to security because maybe the CSOs are not focused enough on this communications part, marketing part, let's say. You have to have the connections. They need to know about you, and they need to know, okay, listen, we have a new market. We have a new market in Africa, high-risk area. We have someone in-house who can accompany us along the way in the process and so on. And this is the focus, and for our service providers anyway. Go out, leave the security world. It's there. It's right behind you. It's backing you up. But the clients are out there, and they don't have mostly no security affiliation whatsoever.
So with that, where are we likely to see and bump into German operators abroad? I read in the news that many people were helping extract people from the Ukraine, but elsewhere, I mean, where are we likely to sort of see German colleagues and make new friends?
Well, in Germany.
Oh no, apart from Germany.
And abroad, I mean, to be honest, when you go to Libya, when you go to Iraq, when you go to these high-risk areas, this is dominated by not German companies. This is the reality. Why is that? I don't know, to be honest. I think we could deliver it probably in the same quality. But I think there hasn't been any need so far, because usually those companies go again with the business, and the business is more security aware in North America and in UK. Yeah. It's changing a little bit. I mean, we are trying to change it a little bit, yeah, because maybe we are also a different generation. I mean, I'm now 41. My colleagues are usually same age or a little younger, and they studied in international universities. So for them, maybe the English language or French or even Arabic or so might be easier to use as a daily form of communications. And I think this is the big difference now that we are making, or we're trying to make at least, because no matter where you go, security is a English language dominated profession, period. Yeah. So everybody else, no matter if it's from France or from from Poland or I don't know where, Germany, yeah, needs to speak English to get into that line of business, so to speak, internationally. Yeah. And I think this is still in the 21st century, a huge obstacle for many people. Although I think this will change over time, but maybe not to the extent we are seeing, like that US companies are involved internationally in different businesses and security operations, or the British. Yeah. But I think it is a generation topic. Yeah.
So as a slight variation on that, as internationals come into work and operate inside of Germany, either with German clients or international clients, but in a protective capacity, what are some of the things that we should be looking out for to enable us to be able to conduct our primary role, carry out our service to the principal in the best way? Obviously, we mentioned earlier that perhaps a lower profile might help, as there's not so much high presence, close executive protection in Germany when you move around. So if you've got a large entourage, then you could potentially stand out. What are some of the things that international operators would do well to be aware of when coming to operate inside of Germany?
To be honest, I mean, I personally don't see that many internationals operating over here. Yeah. I mean, this can happen when some executive is traveling here, he might bring his detail. But at the end of the day, my personal believing is that no matter where you go, you need a local partner, because you need the language, you need the network, you need the cultural understanding, yeah. You need the licenses, maybe, yeah. And of course, you can be the personal protection, like direct, EP to your let's say CEO, yeah. But are you allowed to wear a gun over here? I'm not sure. Yeah, probably not, because you need a license for that, really. And this can be a process depending on how or at what threat level you can present your CEO to the authorities, really. Yeah, because they need to report him in the risk assessment. Yeah, where you can actually show there is a demand. Yeah, and that's why my believing is, when I do something in, I don't know, I get a job in Brazil, I get a job in Israel, I get a job in I don't know where, I would always partner up with a local company. Maybe I would send my guy, my personal protection team leader, let's say, with the client, but to work with a local team, really. I would always do that. This will also reduce the risk of getting kidnapped and so on. Yeah, because you hear what's going on around you, and my Portuguese is really bad, or Arabic, or whatever. Yeah, and therefore you need local knowledge, and therefore you need a local partner, reliable local partner.
Yeah, totally. I mean, that again, absolutely. I think drivers are often the first port of call for many internationals when we go overseas. Your first contact is often the driver, and it can be one of the best relationships you can build, because they usually have great knowledge. Obviously, they have access to the getaway vehicle, and nobody is as good as drivers for networking. And I'm going to be diplomatic, and I'm going to say passing information. Could say that in other ways, but they like to pass a lot of information between themselves. So I think it's a fantastic network to tap into, and it's certainly, usually my first port of call, or the main hotel concierge and so on. So yeah, totally back that up.
I again think it's important to mix the teams, to have the local knowledge, even from a certain area sometimes, so that you're not missing out any details. Because when you don't speak the language, when you're not from a certain area, you might know about specialties, what's going on, maybe they know already, okay, there's a holiday coming up, like these small things even, it's the details that really help. And that's why a mixed team is my personal preference. It also gives me a better feeling when I let the client fly to Mexico or wherever.
What's next for you, Christoph? What should we expect to see in the coming year?
Well, we are quite new, right? So in October we are becoming 1 year, so the first anniversary. But we are now in the second half of the year ramping up on cybersecurity professionals here, which is quite a task to find the right people. And but we have addressed a few, and they will be onboarded over the next 3-4 months. And also we have some very promising opportunities we are seeing in the Middle East. We are quite optimistic that this will be our really first and very successful year, and therefore start. And probably unnecessary to say that the overall global geopolitical situation is playing towards our hands, and for the whole security industry, because it's getting a little more challenging around the globe, and the awareness is going up, even though slowly over here in Germany. But I think the market is growing, and therefore there's an ever-growing need for reliable security providers, in-house corporate security, and this again will professionalize the whole industry.
I like that. So professionalizing the whole industry, I think, is a great place to end on. Hopefully, we'll see more use, if not demand, in Germany, and hopefully, we'll be seeing more collaborations as time goes on. So good, lovely tour de force. I feel as if we've sort of virtually been to Germany, or at least brought our audience to Germany a little bit today. So absolutely a great place to go for your summer holiday, if you're wondering. But Dr. Christoph Eichel from Jon and myself, thank you very much for coming on. And this has been another fantastic edition of the Circuit Magazine podcast. Well, I'm off to Germany. Maybe I won't find as much success as Christoph has had in his recent career, but I'm certainly fascinated by the expanding security market. What did you take away from today's session, Jon?
Well, this is a location for me that operationally I'm taken to. I do go in and out of Germany quite frequently, so it's always good to build more connections there and to gain a deeper understanding. I think it's really reinforced and shined a light on a lot of the different, should we call them cultural aspects that are at play in Germany, that have contributed towards the industry being quite shrunken, really, when we compare it to different European countries, but potentially might be on the cusp of expansion through the different factors that we heard about today, especially cybersecurity. And, that's always one for protectors to look out for, if not, go and do a wholesale career change. But I think the fact that we keep hearing about it and always hearing, this is where the demand is, that it would behoove any of our listeners to want to gain a deeper knowledge in this area.
Absolutely. And as we have many times said, it doesn't mean you have to become a hacker or some sort of programmer. It might just mean that you need to have that in your team. And Christoph was very forthright talking about diverse teams in that respect. Have a diverse skill set.
Well, listen, even if it's just jargon, even if it's just understanding the language, and I'm not talking about programming language, but literally the language to be able to speak about these matters, then at least you can have a conversation with somebody.
That's a good point. And culturally, I think that matters in Germany as much, if not more than anywhere else, because from personal experience, German companies are looking for longer term relationships. And the longer the relationship lasts, the more you learn, the more you can partner, the more you can bring new colleagues on board. You can maybe become sort of a value-added reseller of cyber or whatever. But it's more that trust is built up over time. Christoph mentioned that there are some family office networks, some private groupings that you really have to work hard to understand. But once you're there, you can really see the old boys network, the old money network, the Hanseatic network. He didn't say Hanseatic, but that's something I remember. And there's a lot to play for if only you would invest time and realize that maybe a lot of the money is in the medium enterprise zones. But good. What else have we got coming up, Jon? Because I know, like always, some people are very, very active on the BBA Connect app and the NABA Protector app, which is great news. But what else do we want people to look at?
Well, I think I just want to stay on this networking and connections thing for a moment longer. And as that relates to, the BBA and the circuit and what we do, it was some really great points that came out in the interview there. And I think it's one that's often overlooked or paid lip service to. We hear about networking and the importance of it so much that it gets a bit stale on the ears. But do we really understand what it means to network? And do we also understand the benefit of doing it? Because, I could definitely speak eloquently about networking when I first came into the industry, because I knew a lot of people simply because I'd been in the military, so by virtue of that. But was I actually doing network? Well, I wasn't really when I first came into the industry. And it was only when I started attending events and putting myself in that space, forcing myself to meet new people, and really I saw how the industry works. And this is a bit of a call to action from myself to any of our listeners who haven't attended an event yet, especially conferences and so on. Get out there, do it. Stop standing in the shadows. I know we spend a lot of time in the shadows, but this is one place where you can, really benefit from reaching out and in connecting with people. What do you think? I mean, I know obviously you'll second everything.
I mean, I do. I agree. As long as they step out of the shadows and they think, well, no one's really going to judge you for the first thing that comes out of your mouth. And that might be what you're worried about. You're like, well, what's the best thing to say? Well, quite often it's just hello or something civil, and it opens things up for you. And then after that, you get to think, well, what value can I bring to this conversation? What value can I bring to this other person? I've seen people so nervous, unfortunately, that they literally open up with, here's my business card, which, I don't know, maybe in Japanese culture could work. But as I guess where I'm going with this is, much as with the topic of today's interview, Germany, if you are thinking about longer term value that you can add before you make an ask of someone, I think you can't go wrong. And there's not much you can do that's wrong when you step out of the shadow in one of these events and make a conversation. There's not much damage you can do. If you're civil and you think, what does this person need, and can I add some value?
Yeah, totally. I think that's such good advice. And personally, for myself, what I do, I just ask myself a very simple question whenever I meet anybody new, and within the capacity in which we're meeting. So if it's professional, if it's security industry related, I ask myself, from in that context, what do I not know about this person or what they do? And that then becomes the question. And everyone loves being asked about what they do, and having an interest shown in them. And I think this is such a great way to start, so much better than, this is who I am, or here's my business card. Because if the person you're meeting is worth their salt, then they will ask you those questions. They will, have an interest to learn that information. And if they're still talking about themselves after 10 minutes and haven't asked you anything about yourself, then that answers your question and you can shut that one down and move along. But for me, that was a great piece of advice that somebody passed on to me.
Excellent. Well, let's use that, and let's encourage others, to use that. And nothing. What's that saying? Nothing so sweet to the human ear as their own name, which I think can translate also into talking about themselves. Because who doesn't like that? Apart from people who are really in the shadows, and then maybe they'll just say they're an accountant and move on. But it's better. You'll get a feel for it. But definitely longer term relationships as opposed to transactional relationships, given that so many operators are individual companies, individual entities, and they're in it for the long haul. So that's at least some good synergy, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, if you're stood in the shadows and you don't want to come out, then the likelihood is you won't be at a networking event in the first place. I don't think you need to worry too much about that. But yeah, and to expand on that, obviously the BBA and the circuit are running events all throughout the year, and so we encourage you, as well as attending any of Pelham's CTGI events, to come along. It's a very friendly bunch. After you've been to one or two events, you'll start to realize there's a core group of people, and it's a very nice community, and it's a very easy community to become integrated into.
And any help you want, let us know. Let me know. Reach out. Always eager to help. You're asking me for my advice and my help. I want to give it. It's flattering. That's to what you said, Jon. People want to be asked, don't they?
Yeah, absolutely. Reach out to anyone on the team. Any of the hosts here on the show. You can connect with us all through the BBA and the NABA apps, and obviously meet us in person at an event. And if you're uncertain to where to start, come and speak to one of us. We not only are we friendly and we're going to receive you very well, we can also help connect you with the people who you might most benefit from speaking to.
Love it. Well, let's get our networking caps on for the summer. Let's maybe go to Germany as well, and reach out to Dr. Christoph Eichel as well, because he's a very, very friendly friend in Germany to get to know. But absolutely interested in Germany, working with Germans, and the future, especially geopolitically, that's increasingly of relevance. Right, so from Jon and myself, this has been another fantastic edition of the Circuit Magazine podcast.
You have been listening to the Circuit Magazine podcast. Be sure to subscribe and be sure to not miss an episode.